Hello everyone and welcome back to Wicked Art. It is Wicked here and it is Fun Draw Friday. So, an anticipated movie that I have this year is the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the sequel to the Into the Spider-Verse, the original one. So I thought we'd draw probably my second favorite Spider-Man of all time. We're going to draw 2099 Spider-Man, good old Miguel. Okay, so I'm just gonna start with a circle for now. Just kind of give me a basic head shape for Spider-Man. And I'm gonna stay nice and loose and build out my body from here. I'm gonna kind of work back and forth just so I can see where everything's lining up. Things like that. But of course, I'm gonna be doing this in my style of art. So it's going to be very exaggerated, hyper stretchy Spider-Man, skinnier along those sides. So yeah, we're just going to continue to build up the body. I want to make sure that I have the right space. Kind of build out those shoulder muscles as I go. So I want to kind of give a sense of movement. To his body. So that's why I'm kind of staying a little loose with it. Just finding the different areas the muscles are going to go in. And obviously make some adjustments along the way as well. I shorten that shoulder up some. See where we want the chest to go. Let's kind of build it in a little right there. Kind of come underneath. I'm going to bend him up real good. Right there. Bring his leg out. Right into the knee. Let's take the leg. Down into the calf there. Bring that back. Again, we're just going to stay nice and loose with it. Let's see, back here. Add some back muscle in right there. Might want to, let's do this. Let's break it down a little bit more. Make it a little bit more slim. A little bit more streamlined. I'm going to bulk him up too much. Let's kind of come this way with it. And we'll just erase that back. Like that. Okay, we got to work on our tricep muscles. Down to our elbow. Other side of the forearm here. Go out. And we'll take it down into the hand there. Okay, so let's do some finger shapes. We want to kind of keep that kind of, he's fixing to try to land on a wall or change positioning with his hands. Bring that out to the thumb here. Better yet, we can just make that one a finger. We could bring that thumb out from here. Like that. And we can kind of bring the pinky down. Right into there. And a little bit of the underside of the palm right there. So let's do, bring out the thigh a little bit right there. And want to do the same on that side. And we can make the leg just kind of disappear over there. Just so that we know that it's bending that way. So we're going to have our other foot come in from over here. Okay, let's come up and finish the other side. Let's bring that shoulder that way. And we can run a tricep off of that. So we want it to kind of fade. towards the back. Want that kind of represent the neck more right here. So we'll just make an adjustment of that. Bring that out. Bring our forearm this way. Come out with our elbow. Right down into our hand. That might be a little too sharp for forearm. So let's do that instead. And we'll come out to our thumb here. Bring our finger up. And we can put like a tiny spread. I think we want that. Let's cross that in front of the finger to give it a better angle there. You can just kind of spread the fingers that way. Okay. Excuse me. So we have a nice basic foundation, if you will. Okay, so now let's kind of refine this head a little bit. We want to kind of round that. On the chin line here. Let's round the head. Right in there like that. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to start drawing, the details that make Miguel here. So the first thing we want to start with is our eyes. Now, 2099 Spider-Man's eyes, they're shaped a little different. They don't have the traditional white in them. It's almost like it's an outline of the original design with just a little bit extra coming down, almost like he's got teeth on the face. And we got these little kind of spikes that come off the ends there. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is I want to kind of adjust my jawline based off of that. So we'll kind of spin that around. Bring that down a little bit. And then we'll curve the other part of the eye back. Almost like we can't see the rest of it. Okay, so that means I can extend the jawline down a little bit more. Kind of like that. All right. Now the rest is more along the lines of like refining, because I want to make sure that I get certain features from the body. So he has this kind of like, it's almost like a spider with a skull kind of thing. So I want to make sure that I capture the right angle with that, and how much is covered by his face. And also the part that extends down his suit into his arm. So I'm going to kind of follow it back to the forearm right here. Now, the key thing too is he's got these spikes kind of come off. The suit. So I want to make sure I capture those in a way that still show kind of motion to it with like the rest of the picture. So I'm just going to make sure that my angles are right. As that continues down, gets to another one. So we have our two spikes coming off the arm there. That, of course, comes down into the hand. Almost like an arrow. Let me even that out a little bit more. Right here. Okay, so we kind of have that spike going. Again, like I said, he's got almost like a skull shape to the spider itself. Means part of the eye will show up through here. The other thing is we kind of have these like gaps in the suit to almost help shape the skull. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Like I said, every video, it's always a cough or something. Okay, so we want to kind of run in the shape right here, but let that come back out. Because we got to remember the body is angled, so we don't want to go too far with it. So I'm going to take that out. And just run those legs down. Right into there. Okay. So that way we're kind of following the pattern that we need. Okay. Now the other thing that the 2099 Spider-Man has, he actually has more of a sharp claw at the end of his suit. So we want to make sure we add that in. For each of the ends down there. Okay, then obviously I want to do the same thing. The fingers on the other end. Alright. Okay, so what I did to one side, I gotta do the other. So that same aspect of that red line going down. Okay, and I want my spikes be located on the forearm. We'll kind of run out of that, connect forward a little bit, and then come back. And we'll add the second one right in there. Okay, and again, we kind of come down. I'm going to have to shorten it just because of the distance. I'm going to come down to the arrow and bring that back down the line. So now we have a basic foundational setup for our 2099 Spider-Man. Let me slide that down. Sorry, I didn't realize, but if you need to see up here at the top what I did. Okay, and then it's just going to be a simple task. We're going to kind of go around and we're going to thicken up. The edge. Now I'm using a pen. You can just use a pencil if you want to darken it that way. We're just going to go around and start hitting up some of these areas to kind of bring our picture to pop and to life a little bit more. So like around some of these curves, I'm going to thicken the line. And then as I ease in to it, it'll kind of help set up the final result of like getting that comic book type look to it. Again, I want to make sure those curves kind of run in and connect. And as I curve to the outside, Probably thicken it up somewhere. Bring that back down in. Same thing here. Kind of connect that corner. And we're going to bring that out on that shoulder detail. Like that. So you can see how it's starting to make it kind of pop out a little bit. Now these lines, I'm just going to keep nice and thin. I'm not going to put too much thickness to them. It's going to be more of just a borderline for the color themselves, except for when we get up here with like the spikes, right? So as I go out with the spikes, I'm going to treat it the same way. I'm just going to kind of thicken up the line weight on the outer edge bend. Like that. Now since I kind of went off the page a little bit, you just have to be careful bringing it back in. So you can adjust your line weights however, and whatever looks good or looks cool to you, that's what you can go for. Again, we're going to kind of come out as it curves. I'm probably going to thicken it up. On that outside edge. And we'll just bring that down. Right to the forearm right here. Let me put a little curve at the end, just to show it coming off of spike. And again, I'm going to keep the red lines just nice, thin, simple. Like that, okay? Now next thing I'm going to do is we're going to come back out here. Again, adjust my line weight thickness, probably on the curve. It just comes with practice and one looks good. Doesn't have to be anything specific. Okay. Thicken up on the curves. Down into those fingers. Like that. Come down here in the finger curves. Behind the knuckle here. And again, you can just change your line weight as you see fit. Whatever you think looks cool, honestly, will go well. How you want it. I'm going to get this outside finger in here. Just that line weight right here on the curve. More like that. Again, getting these points where the curve are. Okay, so we get that finger in there. Just got our lower half of our palm here. Into our thumb. Okay, so now we got that portion of the hand done. We can come down here into the leg. Again, adjust the line weight as needed. Alright, and come down here. Work the line weight on this part of the thigh muscle. A little bit of a kneecap there. Right long into the thigh. Okay. So now again, I can adjust line weights down here on the lower part of the leg. And when you take that out, and work that in that way. Okay, so now we got that little part of the elbow here. Again, just line weights as needed. Got my shoulder lines here. Just like that. Again, just adjusting the line weights as I work my way around. So yours doesn't have to match mine. You can probably look at yours and go, oh man, I'd look cooler with it, you know, looking this way. It's completely up to you. And we're just gonna go from the back here. Again, probably adjust my line weight on the curve. Like that. Set up the curve of the back here. Guys, I'll work my way around. Like that, okay? And then we just continue on from there. We're going to move probably down here into the legs. So we're just going to go right down in here, probably thicken that line up too, just a little. Again, change your line weights wherever. I'm going to do mine more on the curve. And we'll run up into the calf here. Probably put a little bit more thickness on that. And we'll just run that down. Again, just adjusting the line weights as I go. It's really just up to you. I'm sure there's a standard way in the comic book industry of doing it, but me, at the end of the day, I just kind of like going with the flow, more or less. We'll drive that knee in there and then put kind of like a curve. Thicken up that line right there on the knee. Again, on this curve on the thigh, I'll probably thicken that up a little bit more. Just try to even it out as it goes. Again, just right in here. Notice I'm trying to set up the chest first before going in and working in those spider symbols that he's got on his chest. I want to make that stand out first. Okay. Then just like I did with the red line for the stuff on his arms, I'm just going to do a nice thin singular line. For that outside area. Right in there. Okay. So now we're going to come in here. I'm going to start working the head. Again, adjusting my line weights where certain areas are thicker than others. Like down on the curve of the chin here. And then of course when we get to the rounding the back of the head, I thicken that up just a little bit more. Just to change up that line weight. Now here on the inside, I want to kind of curve that in to the neck. Like that. And again, with our outline, we're just going to do a nice, normal, thin trace over with that. And just fill that in that way. Okay, so now we want to start working our way back. Towards the end of this arm. Make that kind of run right off the shoulder there. Thicken that up. Again, around the outside curve. I'm going to thicken my line up there. Just run that down. Like that. Switch to the other side of the shoulder here. Thicken that up. And come around on the bicep here. Get that in there. And a little bit of a curve right there on the overlap. And then we'll get that curve on this spike coming out here. Let's build that in. We'll work in this little bit on the forearm behind it. And run that back. Again, I'm going to kind of thicken my line up on the curve itself. Spin that back to a point. And we'll come down here in this forearm here. And we'll come around on the finger curve and thicken. And get up in the nail. Again, kind of thicken it on the curve here. I'm going to blend that in. Yeah, I'm going to make sure I thicken on the curve. And go back to the finger here. Okay. Now, much like we did with the rest of the red lines, we're going to come in here, put a nice solid tracing. That red line. Okay. And then the next step I want to do is I want to clear up a lot of this. You may not be able to see it on the screen, but I can see it in here. I want to take out the sketchiness. So all those sketch lines that I had, I clean those up nice and clean. And not put too much pressure because I don't want to run the risk of smudging the ink across the paper. So I'm going to put some pressure, but not a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to go around, clean that up. Legs. And everything else. Clean up best I can. Okay, let's make sure this is a nice dark line there. Okay, so now comes the challenging part. We're going to come in and try to add in some inking on here. Okay, so certain things that we want to look at is like where reflections are going to be, things like that. So like right in here, I'm going to add in a little extra detail here. Now you just got to be careful and take your time, because what you don't want to have happen is if you mess up, well, that's pretty much the end game on that one. Because unless you got some white out, there's no erasing the ink marks that you've gone and put on there. So you just got to be real careful and make sure that you take your time and don't rush anything. Okay, so like certain areas like here in the corner, probably thicken that up some more. You know, hitting up different spots to give a little bit more shape or form to areas like the ankles. Because if you want to get technical, like when you see in a comic book, and let's say, you're looking at something like Wolverine's hair, right? He has raven colored hair, or even Batman's cape and cloak. And they always seem to use blue, but that's coming from the lighting itself, right? It's not actually the color of the outfit. It's just if I colored this whole thing in black, well, then it's not much to look at, and you can't really get much detail, into that. So I'm just trying to think of different ways to give the impression of a suit that's being worn, and using that to, in a better sense, just kind of shape the muscles on the leg, right? That way we're just getting a little bit more detail into our image. Okay? So some other things I can do is we can run the shape of a knee on this front side. Front side of the leg there. Kind of have that help shape our calf down in here. And then I want to leave, again, some room for reflection. Because I could just color in, that whole knee shape, but then that's going to kind of take away from being able to add color in there. Again, it just goes back to what I was saying about making everything black. You don't want the entire thing to disappear, from that aspect of it. Okay, we can think about other spaces in here that are going to help us define our thigh muscles. Like how far back do I really want to take that? How much of it's necessary? So we can just take that, fill that in. And just kind of go with it from there. And again, this is going to be a long video, and if you're new to the channel, I like to do the long form, step by step. I know whenever I watched, things that I was trying to learn how to do, and it would just be time lapsed, and you get no idea of like why or how they're doing things. But if this isn't your cup of tea, you like short form videos, let me know. I can make short form videos. Just let me know down in the comment. Excuse me. Sorry. Once again, always coughing. Something goes down. Okay, so we're just gonna fill that in as best we can. You try your best not to leave, too much of those little white spaces that show up. You probably really can't see it that well here on the camera, but they're there, and it's okay if you have them. You probably like what I need to do, which is something should have done a while ago, but I need to invest in like an ink brush, something I can just paint wider, broader strokes, or maybe buy a thicker pen is something that's going to give me, the thing that I need. Okay, so again, things that I'm doing is thinking about different areas to help me with the shape of the body to define the muscles. So I'm like kind of taking this down into the groin region and having it run and connect to the thigh. While at the same time trying to help connect to the abdomen area. Okay. So now I have kind of more of like a larger opening to catch some light, up there at the top of the leg. Okay. Then I can worry about, where this is going to build up. Here, I want to leave a little space between the line work because I don't want to lose that either. So I'm not going to touch the edge of that. And it's all about trial and error. If you draw a line, it doesn't work. Try to see if you can find a way to blend it out or work it in. Keep what you got. Because some things like that, just looks interesting to me. So I want to keep it, even though it's not necessary. Is this intriguing to me personally to keep it, right? So other things to think about, things like the fingers, what shapes I want to make. And I know you're probably wondering why am I jumping around. It's just so like for instance, I don't really know where I want to take that just yet. So I can move on to another area while I think about it. And sometimes what I'll do is when you're finished, you can kind of, step back and look and see what you got and be like, oh, okay, well, let's go this way with it. So it's okay to jump around a little bit. You don't have to stay in the same spot and finish in order as long as you're working towards a finish. And that's the key thing. Regardless of how something turns out with your artwork, always make sure that you finish it. Then you can take it, step back and look and learn from your mistakes. Like, oh, my head's too big or whatever. And you can find a way to, make it to where you're always completing a project and then analyzing what you've done so that when you're better, you can improve even more by trying not to make those same mistakes again. That's what art's all about, is making a mistake. There's plenty of artists out there who still to this day have an issue with drawing feet, or maybe they're trying to draw something at an angle and it just looks really weird. And nobody's perfect, that they're just knocking stuff out on the first go every time. I'm sure there's plenty of erasing that goes on with most people. I could be wrong. Maybe there is a perfect artist out there, but that's just my opinion on the matter. Okay, so now this is going to be more of a tricky part. So since I have most of this exposed here, what I'm going to do is stick close to my line here and then just kind of bring it out every so often, just so we get that impression that it is up against the other finger. Alright, so same thing down in here. I don't want to lose too much of that because I don't want people to know that that's not the palm of his hand. So instead I just go in and add the tiniest bit of thickness in places, just to help level it up a little bit. So you can see how that's kind of helping, form and shape his fingers, like to give the viewer the understanding that the suit is black and red. Like I said, a good argument could be made that it's actually black and dark blue, but I just always took that kind of a color code to just say that it's black and it's just receiving the light, giving a blue tone. So I do believe there were a few like games and stuff where they brought 2099 Spider-Man in, and it was like a dark blue and a red. But I just like to think of it as being a black suit. So it's my personal choice on this. Okay. So again, we're just going to kind of work our way into specific areas. And when you're doing your artwork, if you're going for a comic book, you don't have to go this detailed with the amount of, black shading and things like that going on. I mean, you can go as dark or as light as you want to, honestly. But you just gotta learn to kind of find the shapes and forms that are gonna work the best for you. Okay. So now as I work my way out further, I can start thinning out some of these areas again, since it's not so up close to us. I don't have to do as much shadow shapes and shading. And you just, again, just work those into the areas that just look or deem necessary to do so. Right? Excuse me. So again, I can kind of just pick and choose, you know, where I want certain shading areas to go to. Right? And I can just keep building off of that there. So since I have a little bit of a thicker line towards the bottom, I'm going to lean more towards the top with adding a shadow here on the forearm. And again, your ink pen should represent like the darkest areas that just are not getting the light that's there, right? So before I start spreading my way, you know, throughout the rest, so like if you notice, I'm going to be leaving those red areas alone. I'm probably not going to be adding too much to that. I'm going to thicken up this kneecap right in here. Just because I want the colors to stand out themselves, I'll probably just use a different medium to shade with. Okay, so we could add in, again, certain things to help us with our shapes here. Again, just thinking about the muscles and how they're going to line and shape. So these dark areas, again, are just helping me decide more shape and form into the structure of the body. Okay. Now, hindsight being 2020, a smarter way to do this, if you wanted to be safe, okay, if you didn't want to run the risk that you mess up, you could, and I stress could because it's your choice, what you could do is go in with a pencil first and either A, draw out the shapes and go in and fill in later with a marker or pen, or you could go ahead and just fill it in general with your pencil and again just go over it with an ink brush or a marker later. And the problem I found doing that if you're using markers is when you kind of paint over or color over the marker or the pencil with the marker, it kind of just bleeds through and it just looks like you have marker and pencil on your paper. So again, just personal choice. It's always cool to experiment, try out different things. Like I said, this is going to be a much longer video than usual, but if you're somebody who's actually following along and practicing, it's just going to benefit you in the long run, and you'll have yourself a pretty cool image when you're done. So you see how it's kind of building it up. Right, so we're going to kind of come down. Just going to let it touch a little bit right there on that forearm part. And we'll let that run into the side there as well. And honestly, we'll just do the same with this part here. Okay. And now we can start working our way back out that way. So like I said, I'm going to leave this alone. Again, just kind of put the shadows in with your ink pen as you wish. If you don't like the way I'm doing mine, you can kind of pick up on what I'm putting down on here. You can just continue to follow along as you do your own iteration. So you gotta kind of love the process if you really want to make sure that you get better. You gotta love the steps, the mistakes, everything that comes along with it. It's gotta just be a passion. I'm gonna thicken that up on the bicep just a little. Probably put some hatch shading. Right there on the ends, and just kind of leave that more open. And that way I can stick more to the back side. And we can just fill that in right there. And then sometimes you just have to like stop, take a look back, see what you got. Where do I run it? So I think I want to run it down and around this way. Just see how those shapes look. All right, think of different things we can add in here. Like maybe some more hatch lines right in there off the shoulder. And a little bit off the edge there. Okay, so you can see how it's starting to come alive a little bit. Now, certain areas like back here, we could start by making it thicker, and then just kind of draw in around the side, kind of help us extend that muscle out. Okay. Now, other areas to think about. Because we don't want to leave too much of a gap. You can add in some extra shadow work back here on the back side of the neck. Just have that kind of connect there and round out. Like that. Okay. Now before I move up there, I do want to come in and fill in some of this. I'm staying real close and tight right here. And then kind of filling in, we'll run that right there into the neck like that. Like I said, some of our shadow can come from a different mediums. Like I said, if I use the markers after this, I can use that to fill in other areas like things on the chest and down in this area too specifically. Okay, so like other things to think about too would be, you know, parts of the face. That I really want to help accentuate the face on. So I kind of have like this sharp curve back. Little piece right there just so I can kind of see like where the nose falls on the face. You know, this area you can probably connect right there, and we could probably bring it out a little into the shape right into there, right, just to help bring that out some more. Again, we want to kind of sell kind of a stern look, so we could use this area of the head to give us some line work on it. Again, we could bring in some hatching lines to help sell that point. Just run that into the line work there. Like that. Okay. We definitely want some shadow work here and give the impression of where the eyes are, even though he's seeing through the mask a little bit differently than what Spider-Man does traditionally. And we can just build that out like that there. I'll leave that edge rim, okay? So now that I've built that up in there, I can continue to move on in this back area back here. And you can do things like this where you try out different shapes, and setting it up that way, what that does is allow you, if you don't like it, you can just go back in and make it a normal shape. But it gives a little bit of sense of motion and stuff on the image too to help clear it out. Okay, so we do want a lot, but just maybe a little impression right here on the shoulder. And I could probably add in a few extra hatches right in there. And again, we can just continue. To work our way back with that same shape. And again, if I don't like it, I can always adjust it into a full shape. That's a little more solid without the markings coming off. Right? So again, we're just playing around and seeing what we can do. And now we got our shoulders, which we can connect here. Run that into that line for now. Leave a little gap and then come down that way and touch. All right. And then what I can do here, we can have a little bit more shadow on this area because we left the front shoulder alone just because it's more exposed towards the light. So we're going to add a little bit of shadow right in here. And we can kind of do the same here. Add just a little bit more detail to that. So like this is what I was talking about, changing the shape. I can round that out more if I don't like the way that that looks. That way it's a little less wavy looking. Okay, we can run off this line here. Bring that back. And we can just close that off like that. Again, if I wanted to, add in some little hatching lines just to give it a little bit more interest in there. Now I am going to extend this out just a tad and get just a simple elbow shape. Right inside of there. So you can see by the way I've set up all the black lines and stuff that is, you know, the light source of what's he's jumping towards or whatever is more from this front side. Looking at it now, I do need to ensure that I increase this thickness right here just so the shadows kind of match what's going on. Okay, this whole back area I could just make thicker for that elbow. And then again right back in here, just kind of add in another line. And we can close that off. And then since we're getting more towards the underside here, we can form ourselves a nice shape there. Okay, now with the fingers, I'm going to want to be extra careful. So we don't want to overtake. And since it's smaller, we don't have to do a huge amount. So I can keep my forms a little bit more streamlined and simple as they go back. Do nice and thin right here at the fingers. And then kind of spread it out back. Into there like that. Okay, so I want to take this underside on the thumb. And just kind of connect it that way. Okay, so now I have myself a nice inked up, you know, through line of what I want. So now what I can do is this next part you don't have to do if you just want to leave it like that. But I am going to come in here and I'm going to color, kind of like I did with Invader Zim earlier this week. So I'm just trying to practice more with my markers. So we're going to come in here, put something underneath just so it doesn't bleed through as best as I can. So the first thing I want to do is I want to touch up with some gray. So I need to make sure that I find me a good, and of course my warm gray would be pretty much dead. Let's see if we can find ourselves a decent midway shadow. We can use that. Okay, so now we need to start thinking about things like where the light's hitting and the shadow's going, right? So, actually, just noticed something. Got a little bit of a split right there that should be filled in. Okay. So I'm going to keep things first with this gray, and I'm just, if you have Oahu, Hu, Woho markers, I don't know how to say Oahu, WG3 warm gray, or if you just have a gray and you want to test it out, that's what we're going with first, is the gray tones. Okay, and then we'll just put in a nice silvery color. And I can work in, the areas that I'm trying to achieve, right? So, like the areas that I want white and reflective on, I'm not going to touch. So, like these little outer edge rims here, I'm probably not going to use those. So, I'm going to keep close here. Just trying to form and shape some shadow. And I can kind of follow the shadow shapes that I've already made with my ink outlines. So it's almost like I'm extending those out a little bit farther. By following those in, okay? So certain areas like here, it's a little thicker on the curve. Like that. These areas where the different muscles are touching. Right, and I can just build it and shade it in that way. So again, these areas where it's kind of got the overlaps of the muscles, even down here. Into the chest. Just kind of looking at how I want different shadows to shape onto the body, so that when I paint, draw over it with the actual color, it'll kind of give me the shapes to my muscles as well in the process. Okay, so I want to lean more heavy with my reflections being over the top side. So essentially just think of it like any of the shading practices you've done. This gray is you shading in your picture. And I am by no means an alcohol marker expert, but I am trying to improve and get better. So we can all sit here on this journey and make mistakes together. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. So next part, I want to keep some reflectivity in here. So I'm going to kind of go light here, and then as it runs down, again, we're going to kind of curve with the muscle here. Again, I'm going to have this whole back area. And then I want to kind of think of like how much of the regular blue to be exposed. Again, I'm just kind of using what I have in the image to help me out, right? So I want more of that. I have to kind of pick a reflective side. So I'm going to do the left side in shadow. And leave the right side as non-reflective, right? So this whole area in here, kind of like that. I also want to make sure I'm still feeding the shapes that go into my hands and muscles as well. Okay, now same this way. I'm probably going to just stay up here towards the top and just follow that shape down. Right? And you can see how that's kind of grabbing the shadow there. Okay, so I want a little bit come out here on the knee, on the leg. I also want to make sure, like here on this side, we're going to fill that in as well. And then down here towards the bottom, I'll leave a little space. For some highlights to go on that, okay? Now I want to do the same down here and these neck area. You have to think about how much light is actually going to be exposed. So same with my face here. I'm not worried about the shape of the mask itself, right? I'm worried about the shape of the shadow. That's actually traveling down, so I want to get a little bit here in the eye, inside right there, and ever so slightly along the edge there. Okay, so now I can come back right in here, back behind the shoulders. Again, we can fill in right here on the shadow. And this is the part where it's okay to bleed into that area where it's going to be red up. And we'll just run back with the arm here. Okay. And as we work back, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to kind of inside the edge, so I'm going to go real slow and real light just because it's lighter back here. So I don't want to take up too much space on it. Okay, and we can work in our fingers. Keep the top area reflective so I can fill in this bottom piece here. And then same with this part of the hand. Right here, we're just going to keep that bottom part shadowed. Like that. Okay, I'm going to get a little tiny bit, I mean a little tiny bit close to the edge. Right here. And that takes care of our shadowed areas. Now, the key thing here is going to be finding a good blue. Okay, because we don't want it to be super dark, and we also don't want it to be super light. So we need to find ourselves a good color. So let's just try a couple of these blues, and I can't see it on my screen, but I'm testing out which blues are the best. So I'm going to go with, if you're using the Oahu, okay, I'm going with a number 70 Royal Blue. Now, I may end up regretting that decision. but I'm trying not to. So let's give it a test run. So we're gonna paint it back here. And it's okay to go over your ink with it. So all that's going to do is help blend it better. So we're going to let that dry for a sec. Let's see what that looks like. My problem is it looks like it's eating that gray that we're using, but hey, we'll keep going with it. So we might have ourselves a little backup plan. Now I am going to leave the areas that are getting some white. I'm going to leave those white. I'm not going to color those in. What we may have to do is come back with a darker blue and get those areas, but we'll see. We'll let it go. Let's bring that in. And we'll just keep coloring. Okay, so this whole inside area is not catching a reflection. And you want to be careful so you don't go inside of your red line areas. Just make sure you take your time around that. So I'm going to go nice and slow. Around those areas. Okay. So you can see how I'm leaving the white reflection on there. And you'll start being able to see this color a little bit better as I move closer to the center of the page. My lighting not so great in my room right now, just because one of the light bulbs is going out and I need to get a replacement. Oh man, kind of went over into the red a little bit, wasn't paying attention, but we will be okay. We'll survive. It'll look a little weird, but it's just a small area. Hey, I can start seeing that blue a little bit more. Fill in this gap right here. And again, we'll just continue to go with it. I need to leave some white right in there. I'm going to leave that back area open to reflections as well. So you can see, yeah, it's picking up the shadows a little bit. So should be good to go with that. I don't know why I just colored that blue. I need to start paying attention. I'm going to mess up this whole picture. It should be red. I'll just finish coloring that in blue. Again, I'm using a royal blue from the Ohu set markers. And I'm using the chiseled end just because it covers more space. If I was trying to squeeze into an area, I probably wouldn't use it at all. Okay, so let's start moving back this way with it. Just trying to be very careful. I technically could switch sides to the smaller tip at this point. I think I'm doing okay with how I'm handling that right now, so I'm just going to stick with it. Okay. So I'm going to start working in the middle insides. Again, I'm going to be careful and try not to paint or color in the parts that need to be red. So I think for that area I will switch to the other marker tip. Okay, so we're just going to keep filling that in. I'm just essentially just knocking out all the blue first. And then obviously I'll come back and knock out the red areas as well. Okay, I'm just kind of using the wider edge to help me knock out this area a little better. Okay, now I'm going to switch the smaller nib so I can get in around this without getting in the red too much. Okay, now I just need to go around the head itself. Okay, we'll leave that little bit of space right there at the edge. And the rest I'm just going to kind of fill in. Yeah, when you work inside the eyes there. And leave that little bit of reflectivity. I think you do the same thing right here. Okay, so now I need to find myself a good red. Not anything too crazy. Just a normal red color. Oops. Before I do that, though, probably screaming at me in the comments or at the video right now. Fill in this leg as well. Can't believe I missed that. There we go. So I'm just using a number 3 rose red. And it's a little bit lighter red. But it'll help blend in with some of those shadows a little bit better. Okay, so here's the hard part. I gotta get this edge over here. Hopefully you guys were able to fit in everything. I think I drew a little too big. Start with. So hindsight, again being 2020, in the future, I probably would have went with a darker gray. For the shadow work on here. We'll see if we can figure something out to make it stand out a little bit more. So we may be able to go back over it with a gray. And maybe that'll help us darken it out some more. Right, so we're just going to keep filling in the areas that are red. And then we just got to finish back on this arm right here. Yeah, I'm going to touch that up with like another coat of the gray. Should have used a darker one last time. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see what this green-gray does. Let's see what happens if I color over it. If it darkens it up at all. if any of that's gonna show up. I take the time to do it. Let's see how that dries out. Okay. So yeah, so next time I'm probably just gonna have to start with a darker gray, but that's pretty much gonna be it, guys. Anyway, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more like this, leave a comment, let me know. Subscribe, like, do all that fancy stuff that YouTube asked you to do. But seriously, if you want to learn more, you have a specific request in mind, just let me know down in the comments. Other than that, keep sketching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.